As it cools down here in the Southern Hemisphere, Facebook starts filling up with people complaining religiously about how cold it is and just whinging that they want to be out there sunbathing and they can't wait for summer to come back around. However, there is a handful of people, just like myself, that absolutely love when winter comes around because it means we get to go skiing. So with that in mind, this year in August, I am taking a group of business owners from trade backgrounds across to Wanaka in New Zealand, and we're running the first ever Learn and Ski program, which is a program we put together to basically help people, business owners, tradies, whoever, people that want to get away and go down to the snow, but they sometimes struggle justifying that time and that cost. So what we're doing is we're running this program, which is a complete tax deduction. It is a workshop in the afternoon. We're skiing in the mornings, and we go into a workshop, and then we get to hang out and socialize in the evening. So it's going to be a really cool program, and we cannot wait for it to come around. It cannot come soon enough. So if that interests you, head across to thesiteshed.com/events where you'll be able to find a link to that. Anyway, it'll be a load of fun, so I hope you can join us. Hello and welcome back to Toolbox Talks. My name is Matt Jones, and you are joining us today in either episode 1, 2, or 3 of the Powering Your Business with the 7 Power Contractor Approach series that we're doing with the one and only Mr. Al Levy from Appleseed Business. Al's located in the USA, and he is the accomplished author of the 7 Power Contractor, which he wrote as a basically, it's kind of like a memoir of his experience in, owning and growing a successful business in New York. And now Al is a business consultant who works with trade-based organizations all over North America. Anyway, I know you're going to absolutely love this series. In episode 1, we're talking about planning power. In episode 2, we're talking about operating power. And then in the final episode, we're talking about staffing power. And they are all full to the brim of some absolute nuggets, so you're going to love it. Anyway, if you do enjoy it, please leave us some comments in the show notes, or better still, head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, and you can leave us an amazing 5-star review. That's all from me. Enjoy.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Site Shed podcast. My name is Matt Jones, and you are joining us in the Powering Your Business with the 7 Power Contractor Approach series that I'm conducting with my co-host, Al Levy from Appleseed Business. Al, welcome back to the microphone.
Thank you so much.
So, Al, it's been a cracking series so far. Episode 1, we were talking about planning power, where we sort of touched on, I suppose, the importance of getting like a project list together and then filtering that list down into really what's important and what needs to be achieved within your organization. In the second episode, we were talking about operating power, and operating power was really about, creating policies and procedures that, your organization can follow to make sure that you're getting the results that you need to be achieving. And in this episode, we're talking about staffing power. So can you give us a bit of an insight as to why you wanted to talk about staffing power before we get started?
Yeah, staffing power is something that eludes us in terms of, usually when I come into a consulting situation, people will go, I got to motivate the people, I got to motivate the staff. And if it wasn't for me, then when anything gets done. And this is the whole owner diatribe about, we're getting all of this frustration out about staff, and there aren't good people, and young people don't want to work. Right? I'm sure you've heard this whole thing, Matt.
Not today.
And the answer is people. There are great people out there dying to come work for the right company, the employer of choice, if you will. And the question is, are you that guy? Is your company that company? And so, again, I wasn't born this way, as I think I've alluded to a number of times. Is I was beaten up and understood that didn't feel good. So here's what I like to share is we had a very successful company, and if you use money as a measure of it, we were having a great life and providing for myself and my brothers and my family, and all that stuff was great, but highly stressful. Here was one of the stresses that I had. I had 25 technicians,
Yeah.
And I have a lot of people in the office, but 25 technicians are really the money makers. And
it's a lot of mouths to feed.
My feeling was that any day they don't know I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Any day. So I felt like a hostage at my own company. I wouldn't hold them to accountable standards. And I just, it was just, they would knock on my door at 5 o'clock and I would feel like I was being, taken advantage of because it's a busy season. I need people and I got to do this stuff. So it was very, very frustrating. But when I stopped looking at being a victim and I started looking about, well, how can I make this better for all of us? That's when I really got hold of this, staffing situation. How do we get better at staffing? And so I'm really speaking to, I'm sorry for laughing, but again, just kind of flashed back to me, which is in America, there's typically when you are looking to quit and you want to quit on good terms, you give 2 weeks notice. I don't know if that's true in Australia. Is that pretty much true?
More or less.
Okay. So 2 weeks is pretty standard here. So a lot of times we would get 2 weeks notice, and that's good. But, now we have to figure out what to do. We've got the truck back and who we're going to hire and all of that. And sometimes we get a week's notice, and sometimes we would find the keys on the dashboard with no note, not even a Post-it note breakup or anything else of that nature. And now we knew we were in trouble because there's a truck sitting in the yard and it's not going to make any money. Well, here's the worst. Years ago, before GPS tracking, we'd actually have to go find the truck. All of those bad, this lower level. And that was because we were always reactive, never proactive.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brother Marty, who's kind of the financial guy at the company, but he has a great sense of, because he picks up the phone, as most businesses, everybody does everything. But one day he said to me, he says, you know what our hiring policy is? I said, oh, Marty, what's our hiring policy? It's called the fog the mirror test. If you can fog the mirror, we'll hire you. Because we were so desperate. We were waiting for somebody to quit or fire or whatever else, get sick, and then we would get into action.
Oh.
So to change that dynamic, what we learned to do was very different, really different. And there are 5 things that the Staffing Power program is really about.
Okay.
So one is to change. Go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just going to say, that's interesting. I'm interested to hear how you've built a system around this. So carry on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Okay. No problem. So the 5 things to get it proactive rather than reactive, the way I was describing, is you always need to be recruiting. If you are a growing company, and Matt, I use a good example, you're good at marketing. Hopefully the people that work with you will also understand the power of marketing, which means there's more calls than you can humanly do in a day, and that's a good thing. Now, you can be selective rather than the people being selective. And if you're really all that good, then you're going to grow it, which brings you back to my program right here, which is how you're going to build the staff to go out and do all the great job that Matt has created by sending you all these calls. So you need to always be recruiting. And recruiting is really just another version of marketing. Just like you always need to be marketing, you can't wait till your phone is dead and then go, hey, Matt, did you ever go and to handle those pay-per-clicks? Hey, Matt, did you ever get the direct mail postcards out? Hey, Matt, follow what I'm saying for that? Well, goes for recruiting. What are you actively doing? What websites are you in? What, that's really the way to go today is how are you getting the message out that you're always looking for great people? And of course, in recruiting, here's the key thing. The more skills that you can provide, the more you can hire on willingness. So think of a seesaw for a minute. As the seesaw is, most of us don't know how to train anybody. We can't provide. The way you arrive is the way you die at a company. So we have to hire all on skills and hope you're willing. But if you can take somebody and get them all the skills and training they need, then the real determining factor in recruiting and hiring is all about willingness. And that's the people you love to go to work with.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So we are always recruiting.
Okay.
Always recruiting. And it's got to be part of what Ellen teaches. It's got to be in the budget. Because if it's not in the budget, just like marketing, you're not going to do it. It's got to be on somebody's calendar or you're not going to do it. And today, again, online searches, recommendations, working vocational tech schools here we have in the States. Imagine you have trade schools as well. Are you the people that they think of first to send good, willing people? And do you have the ability to get them up the skills ladder, which is something I'm going to talk a little bit more about. But that's what I mean by always recruiting. Step one.
Al, one thing I suppose I do want to ask you while we're talking about staffing is that whole mantra around hiring people that are qualified versus hiring people with the right attitude. What's your standpoint on that?
Yeah, that was what I was speaking to. When you say attitude, I call it willingness. And so willingness is really what I'm interested in. So the question that people always go is, well, how would I know that in an interview? Which is where I'm going next during hiring, which is, so Matt, I have a clipboard or whatever I do or a procedure. I'm going down through the steps of the interview, making sure we're, clean, neat, whatever you're doing. I have a check your driver's license. You're going to be operating my vehicle, making sure that there's no criminal violations, backgrounds, drug testing, whatever your policies are. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of this, I'm going to look up and say to you, hey, Matt, I know this is going to sound funny, but at our company, we ask you to sing as part of our hiring process. So I know that could be embarrassing. So I'm going to start you off and you're going to join in. Happy birthday to you, or Twinkle Twinkle, if you like that. So here's what I've already demonstrated. I have a really awful voice. My wife and I used to tease that we actually had a high nursery rhyme to our kids when they were growing up. So I've already made it safe for you to join in. So when I tell this to customers, and you're laughing now, they all go, nobody will do that. And I go, yes, they will. They absolutely will. And I'm talking about bookkeepers and anybody that you hire. Because if you won't join in and sing with me, I've already shown you, me, the owner, I will sing. I will do it. Here's why this is so important. You have people that show up that are rigid. They already have what they will and won't do, and they have all this other stuff. That's not who I'm looking for. I sent a text to the job. He was out over here, and now all of a sudden he's got to go someplace, which is the nature of techism. Things change. You got to manage on the roller skates. And if you are not going to go with the wind, you're not willing. So this is how an interview process. There's more steps of willingness. But I developed training centers. I had operations manuals, and I had a way to take you every step up the organizational chart. Think of it as a ladder, so that you built a career with me, not a job. And if you can offer careers and not a job, you are automatically the employer of choice, and you can dominate your marketplace once you grab hold of that. There's a company, my franchise, Ellen and I, Zoom franchise, I was just there at the Philadelphia operation. We doubled the size of the company in a couple of months. We have so many young, willing, exciting people who are just blowing the doors off of this company. And they're pushing us in such a positive and great way, because the first thing that they have learned over the years of working together, if you want a great apple pie, you better start with really good apples. And the really good apples is all about willingness once you have the ability. So they have a training center, just like I had a training center. They have operations manuals, just like I have an operations manual. I taught them how to be great trainers. And so their classes are interesting and exciting, not some boring doctorate class on plumbing and drains. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that is such a massive, or in any company, to be honest, that I've ever worked in, that has always been one thing that has just been forever missing. There's never been that, I suppose, stairway to, I suppose, the next level, or even in the space of maybe not even like from a position point of view, but maybe an education point of view, like understanding, learning about the business and learning different areas of the business and why you need to charge a certain amount because it correlates back to, how the overheads all tie in and all this kind of stuff. Like that seems to be a thing that I think if people or owners would get better at communicating to staff, then they'd probably get a better buy-in and they build a better culture around it.
Yeah. And so we're into the recruiting process and talk a little bit about hiring. You always have to be orienting, always have to be training, and always be retaining. And I'll come back in a little more depth to that, but I wanted to get the 5 steps out because now what you're talking about really touches this. How do you get people to stay in? Because every time you have to hire somebody new, that's a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of cost. And it's great if you're growing and expanding, not because you have to keep replacing people because there's a huge staffing turnover. One of the prime reasons people jump out is because they feel it becomes a dead-end job.
Yeah.
And back in the late 90s when everybody was building all over the place, a lot of my guys were pirated, which means people were calling them up, headhunting them, trying to steal them because they knew my guys were really good. And I would venture to say, great. I didn't lose anybody, and they were offering more money. So the question is why? The reason I didn't lose it is because they clearly understood that with my company, you're never done learning. Al's sitting right next to you. Richie's sitting next to you. We're going to classes. We're getting better. There's an org chart. Today, I'm an apprentice. Tomorrow, I can be a junior tech. I can become a senior tech. I become a field supervisor, and I can run a business within your business, my spoke, my hub. So you're in Melbourne, and you got an hour's drive from where you are. You can create a spoke shop in that location with a field supervisor and a team and start putting spokes all over the map and reduce your drive time. And because I know you were talking in one of the ones I heard about how awful traffic can be. The big contractor was talking about how awful traffic is. It's the universal problem. And this is the stepping stones to how to do that. So do you want to talk a little bit more about?
Excuse my interruption here, Al, for 1 second. What's a spoke shop?
A spoke shop, yes. So when you have manuals and planning and all of the steps of the 7 Power Contractor, planning, operations, staffing, sales, marketing, financial, and rewards, and everybody at the company is going and growing, well, pretty soon the question is, how far can you serve? So imagine you put a point on your map and draw an hour's drive time, not an hour distance, hour drive time. If they have to drive an hour from Sydney or Melbourne to get out to that, and they have to drive an hour back and an hour there and an hour back, that's what we call windshield time or lost billable hours or lost productivity time. So there's a location that's an hour away, and if I had a spoke there, a shop, a little mini shop, I could send a field supervisor there with a couple of techs, and we could handle that area and stay in that area and work 2 ends to the middle. And if I'm out there, I can actually begin to attract my customer base gets even bigger out there. So imagine there's a hub of your wheel and there's spokes going out like a bicycle. That's what I'm speaking to.
Gotcha. Yeah, wow, that's really... So I suppose this would come back to financial planning. Well, I mean, knowing what your overheads are, and can you afford to have that sort of set up out that way? I mean, how do you attack that? Or is that just a totally different conversation?
Absolutely. But here's what I can tell you. Don't do any of it. Don't do any of it. Don't do any of it until you have got rock solid systems at your main shop. Because as soon as you try to recreate a shop 2 blocks away, it's already different. So it will not be if you have manuals and training and systems and training centers and all of these systems about how you answer phones and dispatch. You can replicate that business an hour away and have a spoke set up or a satellite shop. That's another way to talk about it. These are great things that you can do. You can grow as big as you want.
It's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I suppose one thing I would like to clarify there in the spoke shop setup, have you got somebody like a manager that stays in there, takes phone calls, does dispatch, orders, and does all this kind of stuff? Is that typically how they work?
It depends. Typically, the great cost saving is that all of the CSR, customer service rep, and all the dispatching, and all the account receivable, payable is all handled at the main shop or the hub shop. Handles all that.
Yeah.
So the remote shop is just a place where people start, work, end the day there, and do some of the kind of stuff. If that shop begins to grow the way I talk about, and now you're marketing around it, ultimately you're right. But I'm not looking for a manager who sits at a desk. It would be, let's say, a CSR or a dispatch, somebody handles the phones. And then you can grow a spoke and continue this organic growth from there out. But it comes back one more time to
interesting.
Here in Staffing Power, you have to be a great recruiter. You have to be great in your hiring process. And that is really having a structured way of doing it. And then orienting, here was that I used to miss, which is, okay, so we're desperate. Now this time we decide, okay, we'll recruit you. You show up, Matt. I got a truck in the yard. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to go, okay, here's the box, here's this, whatever. Get out in the truck, go make me some money. Because that's what we all think. And I get it. But imagine this. Remember, I don't know if they have the same schooling, but here in America, there's elementary school, you go to junior high school, and by the time you're high school, you're in your mid-teens, and you go into this, and you're a small fish in a really big pond. It is really disorienting. Mm-hmm. You know how great it is to have a big brother or a big sister help you out. So orientation process, the time you spend in that first 5 to 10 days as you bring people on, I had one contractor who's just phenomenal at every one of these things that we worked at. And he said that now he understands the way he orients people in those first 5 to 10 days determines their success for the rest of the time they're at the company. And I tell you, that just blew me away. So I said, well, what do you mean by that, Joe? He goes,
wow.
Think about it. You know, he says, if I get them off to a good start and they feel like they're loved and they feel like they're welcomed as part of the family and they feel a level of success and they're feeling good, things just go good. If they're always behind the 8 ball coming out of this thing, you shove everything at them, they're thrown to the wolves, they never feel good. And it's just always a catch-up game. So this third step, always be orienting, is really that. And again, it's your orientation process is as good as your documented systems and procedures and training. And there's a lot more to this, but I recognize we've got to keep time sensitive. So training is what we were talking about, which is for every step, every box that you have in your org chart, or think of the ladder that Matt was talking about. For me to go to the next box, I have to prove to you that I'm successful meeting the objective standards that it takes to occupy this box. Because if I do, within a specified time, your inherent promise is you're going to take me to class or training that allows me to go to the next box, which gives me more pay, more responsibility, and the next people come in right behind that. It's really cool. It's really cool. Once you figure, now you do have to become a great trainer. Don't subject me to bad training.
I suppose like becoming a trainer is, I mean, it sort of fits into your business model. I'm guessing anyway, in the sense that, you know, it's a progressional, it's a step. Like you can get promoted into these different levels. You can get promoted into being a trainer once you've sort of reached a certain level within the organization. Like it's just another position, right?
Yes. By the time you've gone from the bottom rung, which is apprentice, the junior tech, senior tech, the field supervisors, and see these boxes rising up, you have reached the point where you are starting to manage your own team. There isn't a designated trainer at a company. I don't believe in that because you're asking me to cook dinner tonight, but you won't let me shop for the grocery. That's a bad idea. So the idea is that you, Matt, would be involved in the recruiting, hiring, orienting, training, retaining process with me. And then your success is determined by how well not only you do, but the people that you're training underneath you do in whatever part or capacity you are. So let's say you're the office manager. How well is the team doing the AR, the AP, the human resources, all of that, accounts receivable, accounts payable, sorry about the initials there. So that's kind of as your company goes and grows, this is when this training. But for now, if you're the guy, you're sitting in my truck, we still have to have some training, have some discipline to it. And as you get to 3 or 4 techs, there's got to be some time. And that's what you were mentioning so well, which is that's why it's got to be figured into your budget. This stuff doesn't cost you money. If you've already put it in, it makes you money. Every good employee or great employee you make makes you money because they'll figure out how to do it. And every employee that you do not recruit, hire, orient, and train and retain the right way costs you money. It took me 20 years to figure that out. I hope you take that lesson right now.
Yeah, that was amazing.
So let's talk about, before we wrap up, I wanted to make sure there are 3 goals of Staffing Power because I want to be time sensitive, and then we can come back if you've got time. The first place I always recommend, there are 3 goals of Staffing Power, is find the holes in your existing employees. So whether they're in the office or they're out on the road or whatever capacity there are. And what I mean by is there's holes in our knowledge. So I'm the second best tech out of 25 at my company. And I spend time talking customers out of doing certain repairs. You know why, Matt?
Because you don't know how to do them?
Yes, sir. I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't confident in it. I'm the boss's kid, and I'm doing this. What do you think the rest of them are doing? So we made it safe for people to show us what they don't know. So it goes like this, Matt, whatever you don't know, it is now my responsibility to show you. And I will. I'm going to show you how to do it, then you're going to show me you learned it. And from here on out, after that, you're responsible for doing it. So find the holes in your current employees and fix those holes. The second step is find the holes faster in the new, quote unquote, experienced people you hire. So you hire a bookkeeper, and I ask you, Matt, bookkeeper, hey, do you know how to do QuickBooks? What do you think the only answer I will ever get in an interview is, Matt?
With what? Oh, yes, of course.
Of course, I do it all the time. I've been doing it for a year. Totally. QuickBooks is one of the things that I know inside out. And you don't know until you hire them on, and all of a sudden they don't even know what they're doing in QuickBooks. They don't understand what the chart of accounts are or anything else of that nature. So the idea here is, and anything, including techs, because if you ever ask the tech, so Matt, have you done a lot of plumbing? That's who will always come back, sure I have. My dad and I always did plumbing. Well, that may or may not be true, but what's the chances that they really know how to do a toilet reset the way your company has documented it to? The answer is probably 0 to none. So finding their holes faster in the orientation and training and the hiring process before they come on board in the hiring process by some simple written tests and some quick practical tests. So at least you know where I need to slot you if I'm hiring experienced people.
Yep.
And then the thing that really would change the dynamic of your company and really set you and the company free, and the reason I'm on the phone today with Matt, not at my own company, is because I got great at the last thing, which is I finally got to the point where I could build people from scratch the right way instead of always trying to rewire them. It's exhausting. And you may get lucky once in a while hiring good people, but it's trying to like catching lightning in a bottle over and over and over again. Once you're able to provide skills and training and a career path, and now you can hire on willingness, what you end up with is what I was describing about the Philly shop. It's just an incredible dynamic of, these are people you want to go to battle with every day. It's fun.
That one there kind of ties into my question that I asked earlier with when you're hiring people, I suppose, with the right attitude against people that have the experience. So people may be qualified and be experienced in a certain area of doing something, or they may have they may know how to do something a certain way. However, in my experience, those people are often the harder ones to train or to retrain because they've basically got to unlearn the way they've learned and then relearn the way you want them to learn.
Oh, yes. That's what I was talking about, rewiring. Yes, exactly right. And I will tell you, here's what, and this is not an age prejudice thing. It's just the reality. By the time we hit 40, including yours truly, we're already pretty attached to what we're doing. We're going to kind of hear what you're saying, but just like I said, kind of what you're saying. But that can happen with young people too, by the way. Don't get fixed on that. But yes, we hire people that are experienced, they already have it in their head. That's the way. Now you can, if you have documented systems, you can do that. You can manage it. You can make it better. And that's what we were talking about in operating power, for instance, and in staffing power, where you have training curriculum and training centers. Because at the end of it, when we have a no heat or no cooling or a plumbing leak, you're going to go in the training center and prove that you're doing it the way that we do, or you're not going to be working here for long.
Yeah. There's a saying, which it's not mine. I'll claim it for the sake of this podcast, but it's be green and growing, or ripe and rotting. And it's referring to, I suppose, what are you going to be? Are you going to be somebody who can take information on board, adopt it, listen, and, be teachable? Or are you the type of person that's like, no, I know it all?
Yes. So in the recruiting phase and filling the pond, so we call it stocking the pond if you go fishing, which is you have a pond, you dump your fish in, it's a whole lot easier to catch fish. Well, that's what really having apprentices come on board, and because we have work for them. We have work in the warehouse for them. We have installation work that they can do, and they come on board. And every one of us, including the owners, I mean, you weren't born in light. You didn't know what you did. You started out carrying the tools, holding the flashlight, working with somebody, but now if you have an organized structure for apprentices, and you could find them and give them skills and teach them how to use a pro press machine, how to solder, and all these other skills, by the time they get in the truck, they can be helpful. And now they're starting to build their career and build some time. Now, there is some licensing things that are legitimate, and that depends on which area you are. But the sooner you get them in the pond, the sooner they can start, going and growing. And that's what Matt and I are speaking for, is your company is going to run out of good people to find, and quote-unquote good people, because they'll never be as good as the people you build. Every company that I've worked with, at the end, when they have done this, here's the only thing they say to me: wow, I wish I had started sooner. Not, oh, this was a lot of money, why did we ever get involved with this? That's the only thing they ever say.
Al, one question, I suppose, before we get to wrapping up, with staffing power being the topic, do you, in your experience, have you had any exposure to or ever implemented anything to do with like personality traits, like personality profiling?
Very funny. Yeah, I started laughing because I just did it with the kitchen cabinet guy and his family, which we'll talk about a family business separately. But it used to be called years ago the sinister personality profiling. Is that a term?
Yep.
Which I think is what you're speaking to, where you go in and find out, and there's a million different. There's DISC surveys, and there's a bunch of different ones. Are you a control person, or which different segment that you are? And try to learn more about them. Is that what you're speaking to, Matt?
Yeah. The reason I ask, only on Monday I released a podcast called "Why." Ever wondered why you annoy people so much? And it was from my experience when I started out in business, and my mentor basically gave me a book to read, which was about personality profiling, and that made me firstly acknowledge what type of personality I had. And then then from there, I could ascertain my typical strengths, weaknesses, and then I learned how to relate that to different types of personalities.
I think the only thing that I would change in this is what is a friendlier and better way to say than personality profiling, which has a sinister effect to it, is what we call motivation mapping. And yeah, I know, do we have to be politically correct? No, but motivational mapping is really about finding what makes Matt, what makes him tick and motivates him, and how does he like to be spoken to? How is he going to respond in a better way if I use certain words? Or I understand where Matt's coming from. And so Ellen and I, who worked together for so many years, together and alone, but basically we're from two different things. If you look at it on the surface, you'd never get how these two could be so good and how they could work together. And it's only because we have done these motivational mapping things and worked together for so long. I respect that she is going to be on an airplane writing her column that she has to turn in tomorrow morning.
Right.
And whatever I do, I could beat her forever. That's never going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows that Al has 6 months of his columns already sent off to his editor. And we respect each other. We respect each other for who we are. Now, here's the other thing that is, I know we're getting close to wrap up, so cut me off if we're going too long on this, because you brought up such a good subject. Because now what you're doing is, what Matt's talking about is taking this project and this great thing about the power of staffing and taking steroids in a good way, by using motivational mapping to understand, how do we tick? Where's the best way we can succeed? So and this is not meant to be a commercial, but the one I use is Flag Pages. And Flag Pages, just like everything, kind of says, so if you're a bookkeeper or you're a technician, you have to have a bunch of task talent. That means I give you a task, Matt, and you have enough within you that you're going to get that task done. Because if you don't, it's always going to be a struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you have no personality, you don't want to work with people, and you don't want to entertain, well, it's going to be hard to make you do sales.
But boy, you'd be a good accountant.
Not impossible. Or be a good accountant. It's exactly right. It's just going to say how you're predisposed. So here's an example. Ellen, she has very little in the way of task talent. She'll get stuff done, but she is always looking for somebody else to get it done. And if nobody else puts their hand up, she'll get it done. And for me, I'm happy to get stuff done. But if I have to get on stage and entertain, I'm going to do it really well. Because the one thing is, I want my results. So sorry for going off a little bit of a tangent, but you brought up a great point. If you put that in your toolbox of staffing power, you're going to find that this makes it go even better, what Matt's referring to about this. Personality profiling and what I call motivational mapping. If you can find a good tool, and I'm sure Matt has some good recommendations for that, but it's not about the sinister aspect of manipulating people, but how can we work better together? How can we put them in situations where they're going to be set up for success? That's what I think Matt is talking to, and what I firmly agree.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a tool. I mean, if you go back to episode 54 on the site shed, you'll see there's a link there you can click on, which will take you to an online test, which will actually you can go through and fill out and answer a number of questions, and it will give you an indication of what type of personality you are, or what types of personality you're made up of. And then for me, that was an eye-opener because I was like, oh my God, I always wondered why this kind of person I would just always annoy the heck out of. And it was because I was trying to talk to them like I want to be talked to.
Yes. And, sales 101 is try to be like the person that you're in front of.
Right.
And that does and doesn't work. But, you do. If once you understand what makes the other person tick, not in a manipulative way, but if you want to get along better, we have to honor and respect. And that's what Matt's talking about. But I would say one step further, take the test yourself and then share it with others because there's nothing hidden. There's nothing wrong. There's no judgment. Mm-hmm. And then encourage others to take the test too, and then get together and figure out how can we use this to help each other to be better at what we are.
Yeah, well, it's funny. That's kind of the approach I took with that one as well. I took the test. I actually embedded my results in the blog post on the website, and then I've encouraged other people to do the same. So we've had a few people that have shared it with us on social media, and it's interesting. It's a really fun test. I encourage everyone to go do it because it was definitely a game changer for me. Anyway,
excellent. Episode 54.
Did you want to wrap up with something there, Al?
No, I just wanted to reiterate the episode that you had mentioned about this profiling.
Yeah, it was episode, it'll be the site shed /054. So episode 54. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Excellent. Very good.
Anyway, that pretty much, I think, from my point of view anyway, sums up this episode. Was there anything that you wanted to add there or recap on?
No, I just think, the thing about Staffing Power is watch the myth that you create.
Yep.
There are great people out there trying to go to work at a great company, but you have to be able to provide them with the skills, hire on willingness, and create a career path for them and nurture them. And you will fall in love with the people that you go to work with every day.
Yeah.
And they will feel the same about you.
I've got to say, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me in that episode was offer careers, not jobs. And I know I think Ellen say something similar, but I think that's so powerful. If you can do that, I think that's certainly the key to retention, if anything else. All right, cool. Well, look, that's I think we'll wrap this episode up now. We've got a little bit over time, so that's fine though. It's all been excellent. So that actually wraps up this series on empowering your business with the 7 Power Contractor Approach. So for all you listeners that did miss the previous episodes, go back and check them out. They're awesome. There'll be links to them, of course, on the show notes. I want to thank Al Levi from Appleseed Business once again for joining us on the show. Al, you're an absolute world of wisdom. And, man, you communicate these things better than anyone I know. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for the great questions and for stopping me for running on, because I so appreciate when you bring these insights. I'm serious, I'm not kidding around. I really appreciate it because I so much want to share this with everybody.
And for the listeners out there, Al, you've offered to give away a chapter of your book, which is the 7 Power Contractor. So that'll be available through the Site Shed website. Go on there and check that out. It's fantastic. And if you want to read on, there'll be a link there, of course, where you'll be able to get the full copy of the book. So Al, thank you very much for that.
My pleasure.
And that, folks, is a wrap. So if you haven't already, head across to thesiteshed.com and register for our Toolbox Talks, where you'll be regularly sent great episodes just like this straight to your inbox, so you'll never miss one. If you want to join the community, you can head across to thesiteshed.com/members, where for a small monthly fee, you'll get access to regularly updated training material, as well as access to our forum where you can mingle and collaborate with trade-based business owners just like you from all over the world. If you're enjoying this podcast, please head across to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it, and it helps us spread the word and reach the masses. Likewise, if you know anyone that might benefit from the content we create, then please go ahead and share this with them.
You've been listening to Toolbox Talks by The Site Shed. For more great content just like this, head across to thesiteshed.com and join the amazing community of savvy trade-based business owners.